Welcome to the Authentic Change Podcast. I'm Mike Horne, your host, and this podcast is for leaders and coaches who need and want fresh perspectives on what it means to live and to lead authentically. You're a leader who wants to make a difference, but sometimes you feel stuck. You know there's more to life and to leadership than what you're currently experiencing. It can be tough to figure out how to grow as a leader. You might be reading all the blogs and books, but it still feels like you're not making progress. You might even be feeling like you're doing everything wrong. On Authentic Change with Mike Horne, we interview experts who share their insights on how to live and lead authentically. Our guests are trendsetters in building great leaders, teams, and organizations. We provide fresh perspectives on what it means to live with purpose and authenticity. Welcome to this episode of the Authentic Change Podcast.
Welcome to this episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horne. I am delighted to have in the virtual studio today, Robert Indries. And he is such an interesting gentleman that it's difficult for me to know where to begin with him. But as he suggests, some of the titles for episodes for which he's best suited are how to double your business in 12 months, how to legally protect your business and yourself, how to manage your business finances like the enterprise. All of that's great fodder for us, but perhaps his story is one that listeners of Authentic Change might have greater interest in. His story about being born into a modest family in Romania, about spending the first part of his life on farms, caring for livestock and working land. And he's got a number of stories about that gives him perspective on building businesses, generating 7 figures yearly, and a travel story, I'm sure, that is there. So without much more than that, I'd like to welcome you, Robert, and encourage you to say a few words about yourself to our audience and describe this epic journey you're on.
Thank you. It actually, to a very large degree, pivoted a lot during the years, as initially I wanted to be an engineer for the most of my life. I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always wanted to work on engineering projects. However, and many people that are here both or listening, both, in HR or culture or, engineers or, people like myself will resonate with this. I was trying to go to various different companies, doing my best, attaining amazing results in every single company I went to based on, their benchmarks. They would say, hey, this is what we need from you. I would get 2x that, 3x that, or whatever in terms of productivity, in terms of effectiveness of my work. Yet, wherever I went to, I found that people do not or did not care about me as a person. They weren't managing me properly. They were not caring about my needs or anything else, that had to do with that. I have so many stories of this. And after many letdowns in corporate, I then said, you know what, you guys have no idea how to lead. You have no idea how to build a culture, that actually cares about people, and so on and so forth. So let me try to do that. It was much, much more difficult than I expected. I thought that they just can't figure it out, and I will. So long story short, first 3 years in business, I made almost no money. Me personally, I made zero. In business, I made some money to cover some salaries. It was incredibly difficult. It was not until year 4 where I made money. And in that year 4 to 5, we passed $1 million. So imagine in the first 3 years, we made almost nothing. And then year 4 to 4 something, we passed $1 million in revenue in 12 months, right? It was just crazy exponential. Much more difficult than I thought, because we have cultural aspects in place in my company, such as unlimited vacation days. Whenever you want to vacation, you take it. Flexible work hours. You can work anytime, any day, any place on the planet, and so on and so forth. Just so many things that we have that treat people more like entrepreneurs than like employees. And it made it incredibly difficult to scale, incredibly difficult to be profitable, and so on. However, I would say in my case, it was worth it because we did build a team of very dedicated individuals that are all self-sustainable. They want to do good work. They want to make the world a better place. We're all working together. And as you said, we now have a portfolio of 8 businesses generating 7 figures yearly, right? So we're in a very good place right now. We had good years and bad years. This year was okay, right? Let's say we had our best year to date was a year where we've grown 481% in 1 year. That was huge. The quantity of growth in that year was, even for me, unimaginable. I know that what I do works. At the same time, when you see it, like when you say like you put $1 in this year and you make almost $5 next year as an ROI, it's crazy good. So we're very happy with that. And now this year we said, okay, let's hop on some podcasts. Because up until now I was very, very not secretive, but private is the right word, right? Like I didn't show my face almost never. I didn't care about publicity. I still don't, to a very large degree. However, now we're closing, multi-million and $10,000,000 deals. And it's weird if anyone does due diligence on you that they can't find anything on you. So it's something that in my case has become almost mandatory. So that's why I'm on this journey right now.
Now, let's explore some of the health issues that have accompanied you on this career and business journey. And one of the things, or one of the items that you report, is that you cured your dyslexia by reading 100 plus books cover to cover and writing 300 plus articles. Say something about that experience.
Well, when I was young, I couldn't read. And I just literally thought of myself that, I'm dumber than all of the other kids because everyone else could read and I couldn't read, or I couldn't memorize poems or, do things of that nature. And so I just lived thinking I'm a little bit dumber, which was in direct contrast to many other things where I was literally much, much better in than others. And so I didn't really understand. I was very confused. And at one point, someone told me that I have dyslexia and they showed me why and how it works and so on. And so then I started doing research on it. And I found out that dyslexia is not the inability to learn or comprehend or read or things of that nature, but it is the difficulty. The difficulty is much, much, much higher. Obviously, it's a spectrum. So you can have a little bit, you can have a lot, right? Like many other things. So let's say you're midway dyslexic or whatever, like you're not the worst, like you can't read at all, or you're not the least where you can read perfectly, right? So let's say it's very hard for you to read. So the only thing you need to do is you need to practice twice, 5 times, 10 times more than anyone else, right? And then if you put in that practice in both reading, writing, speaking, and so on and so forth, dyslexia has many forms. So in my case, it was with reading and writing. And for others, it might be, in algebra, or it might be in something else, it might be more visual than anything else. However, for me, that was the case. So I said, okay, I'm going to cure this. I'm going to literally put in the time, read all of these books, write all of these articles, practice reading, practice writing like crazy for 1 to 2 years or more, as much as it takes, so that I don't have this issue any longer. And I am very happy to report that I've passed that. Now I can, edit people's, let's say, articles. Native English speakers, I edit their articles and I find hundreds of issues. And so it's at the place right now where I don't feel any type of disadvantage, let's say.
Now, you also don't smoke, don't drink coffee, and don't consume sugar, except for 5 days a year. Is that right?
Well, I'm not very meticulous about that in terms of I don't measure it. However, let's say once, like for example, recently we went to a birthday and we had some cake, right? Okay, so we had cake then. And then I might not have sugar for I don't even know how long, until the next birthday, or maybe not even then, right? Many times when we go to birthdays, sometimes we volunteer to bring cake because we make cake without sugar. And then, that everyone's happy because we bring cake, and then we can also, rejoice in that celebration. I also don't drink alcohol or things of that nature. So, for example, the last time I drank anything alcoholic maybe was New Year's. I don't know, something like that. The last time I smoked was when I was maybe 6 or 7 years old, something like that. It's very common to smoke when you're a farm boy, right, in a village, because it's just cool. People do that, so it doesn't matter how old you are. But I stopped very quickly. I just did it for maybe a couple of weeks, and it's just something for me that I feel urges to do it sometimes, to maybe drink something that makes me like numb my senses, or maybe eat something that I have a craving for. So what I typically do is I choose it's like a trigger. I choose the healthier version of that. So if I'm very, let's say, if I have a very strong craving towards eating something sweet, I then try to find a healthy variant of that sweetness. For example, maybe peanut butter with honey, right? Which is 25% protein, healthy, everything's good about that. So I just eat that. I have my protein, I have my sweet tooth craving satisfied. So that's good. In terms of alcohol, if I feel I need or I want, to drink something, what I can do is, for example, I can either get a sweet wine, right? Because wine is a little bit better. No amount of alcohol is good for you, just to be clear with anyone listening. However, you can drink something that's a little bit better, a little bit healthier. Or what I do is I just drink, because at the end of the day, I need fluids, I need liquids. So I just take, either water or tea, or, I make myself something like vitamin C and water, or something, right? Vitamin water. I make the same action of drinking something, just the less damaging variant of that.
You've also been almost fully vegan.
I have for around 3 years. We've been vegan, and we've tried to maintain that lifestyle. However, what we've noticed is a few things. Number one, the two main reasons we went off meat and animal produce. First one is animal cruelty, is because simply there's just too much of that going on. Anyone that does any amount of research on how animals are treated, both cows that they use for milk and whey protein and anything like that, and the meat industry and so on and so forth, will find it grotesque. And if they don't, maybe they have an issue mentally. But that's the main reason. And then the second reason is that almost all, I don't want to say all, because there might be some very small exceptions, but let's say 99% of commercial meats and milks and so on and so forth are filled with, I don't know, like many things that you don't want in your body, right? Like proteins and, so on and so forth. So because of both of those, we avoided it. So now instead, what we do is, because we have family that are farmers, literal farmers, and we know people in villages and so on and so forth, sometimes we eat meat from the farm, like real chicken that was raised on the farm, and they only ate grains or whatever, or any other type of meat, that they make, or eggs from real farms, right? From real chicken and so on. So now we do that. We don't really drink milk too often. Sometimes we eat cheeses, again, homemade cheeses, and that's basically it. So that's what we do right now. We stay away from anything that's commercial. However, we still consume these in moderate amounts, right? When they're from family or friends that we know.
Still able to keep your body fat under 10%?
I was up until a few weeks ago or a couple months ago. What changed is that I decided to bulk up. So I want to get to 95 kilograms by the end of the year. I don't know how much that is in pounds. I'm guessing around 200 pounds, more or less. So at that weight, so I'm bulking up basically. When you're bulking up, fat percentages go up a little bit as well. So right now I'm 15% body fat instead of 10. So I'll probably maintain that up until I get to 95% or 95 kilograms. And then when I get there, if I pass 95, then I'll start cutting calories and just consume protein, cut calories, work out a little bit more, do a little bit more cardio, and then try to maintain myself at 95. So not going down in weight, but going down in body fat percentage. So that might take me 2 to 3 months to achieve. But then, instead of being 75 kilograms at 10% body fat, I will be 95 kilograms at 10% body fat, right? So that's my goal for the next, let's say, 6 months.
Now, with your family and your wife, Diana, you regularly find ways to have beautiful experiences with each family member. Can you be descriptive around that?
So I believe that any of us has the decision to do anything they want with their life. Many people feel that they have to choose. It's either career or health, or it's either career or children or family or whatever, things of that nature. I always believe it's both. You can have an amazing career. You can be very successful financially. You can have an amazing relationship with your spouse and family. You can be very, very healthy, and so on and so forth. As long as you implement the correct systems in your life, you should be able to have all of that, because there's no reason why not. Most people do not need Bill Gates level wealth. Like, you don't need $100 billion. For most people, if they are millionaires, like they have millions of dollars in assets and passive income and so on and so forth, and they have a great relationship with their spouse and they are healthy and so on and so forth, they're literally at the epiphany at the utopia of their life, right? Like, they're literally living life at what they imagined is the fullest, the best, the most fulfilling, right? And so that is very achievable for almost anyone on the planet today, right, in this global economy. So basically, if I want to spend more time with my family, I find the time, I make the time. I say, okay, let's go to this trip, or let's meet them on weekends. Let's have, dinner together. Let's go to this birthday, all of us, and so on and so forth. So we basically plan it into our weeks and months, and then just get the time in. And we know that our parents won't be around for much longer, so we want to spend as much time with them as we can in the next decade or so.
One of your blogs is about the big impact of small actions. Can you say more about that?
I feel that many people have this fictional image in their brain that at one point they will be successful when they do something extraordinary. However, in that article, I talk about how almost every single person you admire today has done very, very small steps very consistently for a very long amount of time, right? It's not that, for example, if anyone looks at Elon Musk, they can look at, oh my gosh, he's achieved so much. Okay, but when he was a young guy, a young engineer working on, I think he was working on X, and then X became PayPal or something like that. I can't remember, but he was literally just writing lines of code. That's all he was doing every single day, right? He was just writing lines of code. And in those lines of code, he would maybe write whatever, a few dozen, a few hundred lines of code a day, right? That's it. He would do that. And then he would go to bed, and the next day he would write a few more lines of code, and then do it over and over and over and over again across many, many months and many, many years. And then, he had PayPal, and then he did many other things after that, right? So it's just those small little things. Like, you don't build a Tesla car, right, the prototype, in one big idea, one big thing. It's many iterations across many months, if not years, and you keep tweaking one small thing every single day. So if we learn to set a goal for ourselves, that's whatever it is we want to achieve in 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years, whatever, and then learn to plan backwards from that and see what do we need to do to get there, and then start doing those things, not like a robot, because I don't like habits, I don't like things of that nature, because many people use those as an excuse to not live fully, right? They say, oh, I would love if my workouts would just be routine, like almost automatic, like I would get out of bed and just work out and read and meditate and do all of these things. I don't like that. I never like that. I always believe in mindfulness. So basically, if you are going to work out, find a way to enjoy that workout. If you're going to read, find a way to be fully present whilst you're reading, right? And so on and so forth. So that mindfulness is very important for me, both in my personal life and in business. And I recommend anyone in their career be very, very mindful and enjoy the work, enjoy anything that it is, because at the end of the day, you chose that, you want that. You want to be smarter. So enjoy the book you're reading. Be grateful for it, right? You want to be healthier. So enjoy the stretch, enjoy the weight, enjoy whatever it is that you're doing, the walk, the running, and so on, right? That's why I believe, there's a very big importance that should be given to small things, because those small things are the ones that will achieve us the results that we ultimately want.
Maybe we'll begin to wrap up by getting some of your wisdom and advice and guidance on productivity and time management. Everybody always wants more, but how have you managed to do this all with family, work, your businesses, your health? What tips or guidance will you offer to our listeners?
So the first thing I would say is to maybe think in terms of visions. So for anything in your life, define your vision. If it's, let's say, your personal life, you can write down a vision statement that's 3 years in the future. A vision is a narrative in the present tense of how I am today, but that today is a date 3 years in advance, or 4 years, or 5 years, whatever. So you write that vision down, and then in that vision you can have family, health, and so on and so forth. Anything you want. It can be 1 page, 2 pages, whatever. But you basically describe your vision of how you are and how your life is. And so then once you have that vision, then you basically, from there, you extract the main points, like the main areas of importance. I call them strategic areas, right? So you have, let's say, 4 important strategic areas. You have finances, career, family, and health, whatever it is you have. And so now you have a vision, you have your areas, and now you set strategic initiatives every quarter. So I time box all of my goals for the 3 months. And I say, okay, in these 3 months, I want to add 15 pounds of muscle mass, right? And so I'm already there in terms of my goal for what I want, right, within this quarter. Already on track. Sorry, I'm on track with that, right? I'm going very well with that. I'm growing in muscle mass, so everything's going well, and I'm checking it every week. And so I set those strategic initiatives, and now what do? Is I put action steps. Every single action step has to be a step that actually gets me closer to the end goal, whatever the goal is for those 3 months. If it doesn't get me closer, like really closer, then I don't do it, right? So if, for example, if stretching doesn't get me closer to the goal, I do way less stretching than I do weight exercising, right? However, 2 quarters ago, and this is a true story, 2 quarters ago, I had the goal to increase my range of motion by at least 25 to 50%, right? Which means that stretching was the biggest part of that quarter, right? That's what I was measuring. That's what I wanted to be better at. And I succeeded doing that as well, right? So I have these time-boxed approaches. And so in that quarter, if I would have done more weights, that would not have helped me towards achieving that goal. If I would have eaten more sugar, that would not have helped me, because that sugar damages joints, right? So it doesn't help with that. I for example, in that quarter, what I did is I ate a lot of glucosamine, MSM, right? And so on and so forth, these vitamins that help joint strength, right? And anything you can do, basically you write down and then you do it one day at a time, right? You just plan it out and it just helps like crazy. And I do this with all of my businesses, all of our clients. I implement the same strategy, and it's crazy how much calmer they are and how much more they achieve at the same time.
Well, this has certainly been a great interview, Robert Indries. I've been delighted to have you as a guest on Authentic Change. Thanks for all the great advice from a busy person such as yourself around how we more effectively manage our time and our resources. I encourage everyone, you'll find this in the show notes as well as other ways to be in touch with Robert Indries, but to visit him at Robert Indries, RobertIndries.com. You'll find it in the show notes. Robert, once again, thank you.
Thank you as well.
And until the next episode of Authentic Change with Mike Horne, stay well.
Thank you for listening to the Authentic Change podcast. I'm delighted that you've tuned in to listen. Please visit the show notes for links to topics discussed in today's podcast. To download a free ebook on authentic change and leadership and to subscribe to my newsletter, please visit mike-horne.com. Once again, mike-horne.com, mike-horne.com. Once again, thank you for listening to the Authentic Change podcast.